Hello and welcome to the Law Podcast, brought to you by the University of Stirling Law Society. I am your host, Jedd France. Today I am delighted to be joined by our very own Claire Welsh to discuss the important topic of mental health and providing some tips on how to remain positive during the current home learning period. So hello Claire, thank you very much for coming on.
No worries at all.
I'll give you a quick minute to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are for anyone who hasn't heard of you before.
Okay, so my name's Claire Welsh. I'm in my third year of LLB Law at Stirling. I'm the social sec for the Law Society this year. Last year I was like the social media officer, so I've got a good idea of what's going on, but I feel as if like we've managed this year to do a lot more events with the society, potentially because it's online. It is easier to kind of get things going, but as a social sec it has been a bit of a challenge, but I think it's gone pretty well so far. Do you agree?
I would agree with you, Claire. I think the events so far have been really good. I think we've done a lot more than I perhaps anticipated when I first came on. I think it's been a really successful semester, and it's massive respect to you for getting so much organised. We've had pub quiz, we've had bingo. We've had a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
And what brings us to this episode today is the event that we just had on Monday, just gone on the 16th, which was the mental wellbeing event. So do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction into what went on there and what the thinking behind that was and what kind of motivated you to do that?
Yeah, so basically I attended a conference with the O-Shaped Lawyer Group, and it was kind of centred around mental wellbeing, obviously, and lawyers, and that kind of showed a real perspective of what mental wellbeing meant in the profession. But then I thought, taking it back, it's actually a really, really important thing to look at in students, because if you can kind of get good with, like, if you can get your mental well-being maintained as a student and you kind of give yourself good practices and good routines to get into, it's far easier to transfer that into your like working life, because I think university does give you more scope, because you have a lot of time to yourself and you're not at a job 9 to 5. You can kind of get used to it a little bit more. So I decided to ask 6 different speakers along, and I didn't want to make it too much of like obviously none of us are mental health advisors, so it was just a kind of general chat, and it basically just gave a chance for the speakers and all the people that came along to the event a chance to relate. And it was really nice because everyone just agreed that we're all going through the same thing, and inevitably we can all help each other out. So any tips that we've got or any experiences that we have, it's so important to share them. And I think something that everyone really talked about was the fact that just having a space where you can come and chat to people about your mental well-being and how you feel is as important as anything, really. So yeah, I thought it was a really valuable event.
I personally thought it was a really good open platform. I thought it was really engaging. I mean, we had quite a good turnout in terms of who turned up, and everyone was a law student as well. So we were all going through the same sort of stuff. We all had similar timetables. We had representatives from each year 1 through to 4 on the speakers list out of the 6 speakers. And it was just so nice to have perspectives from everyone. And we had different speakers on, people who had kids, people who were older, people who were younger, people who were at the start of their university career, others who were approaching the end. And I was actually quite blown away by how open everyone was and how engaging it was. And like everyone was just so happy to like just speak about their own mental well-being and not really hold back. And it really helped me as well, because mental health is something that I'm passionate about, and I know it's something you'll be passionate about as well, Claire. So to have an event based around that was a breath of fresh air, really.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
Before you even mentioned the event, I was thinking about doing some sort of like mental health podcast, because myself, I was sitting at home some days thinking, this whole home learning, working from home, whatever you want to call it, it was rubbish, and I really didn't enjoy it. And there's days where you just can't be bothered doing anything.
Literally, yeah.
So I wanted to kind of reach out to people and be like, you know, if you're feeling this way, then you're not alone. We're all kind of going through it together. And I mean, I can't think of anything in recent history where everyone was going through the exact same thing at the same
No,
time.
exactly. You're so right. And I think it was like the best way to kind of like you say, we had a woman come along and speak, and she's had kids, she's kind of done all these different things with her life, and yet she was totally related and having similar feelings and experiences to another one of our speakers who was like 20, and it just kind of shows you that you are never alone. Like, everyone has up and down days.
And what I found really interesting was I never thought about it this way before. Yeah, the woman that you were talking about who had kids and was in her early 30s, she looked at the whole lockdown period as a relief from the actual real life. And she had so much going on with the kids and taking them to school or taking them to nursery or going to doctor appointments, maybe even some like extracurricular like dance classes or whatever it may be. So when the lockdown hit and everything got cancelled at once, she viewed it as like I get a bit of a breather here. Whereas for the rest of us who maybe like, we do stuff on the side and we have part-time jobs and stuff, but it was more kind of like, this isn't very good.
Rubbish. Whereas,
yeah, and she viewed it as like an actual, thank God I've got a bit of a breather here. She did say towards the end, when the schools were opening again, she was like, thank God, because I'm a bit tired. Yeah, like I can imagine being locked up with the kids. Yeah, being locked up with, I think it was 4 kids she said she had.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I have a lot of respect for you.
Because she's obviously studying a law degree, which is very intense. I think this was at the end of her 3rd year that hit.
She's, yeah. So she said she wouldn't have actually stayed. Yeah, she said she was like, I wouldn't have like stayed on for 4th year if this hadn't happened, because she was like reaching kind of, not breaking point with it, but I think like with her degree, she was just really like, I can't balance this anymore. So you're right, it is really interesting to see like how the pandemic, it's easy to view it as a really, really bad thing, but it's also important to step back and see actually that was the only thing that was going to make the whole world stop and slow down. And I think slowing down is actually one of the best things you can do for your mental well-being sometimes, and kind of not getting all wrapped up in life.
Especially as a law student, because we're always pushed to be like, make sure you're networking and going to these events, make sure you're doing well in your exams and your essays, seminar work, it all kind of topples on top of you. And that's not even factoring in part-time work on the side.
Exactly.
So it's easy to just be kind of like 100 miles an hour, 24/7. So I think like we said, it was kind of positive to take a step back and kind of reflect and say, right, okay, calm down a bit, things are getting cancelled, we've got a bit more time to breathe and actually reflect and think, is this the best way for me to live my life, or should I try and prioritize things more and not try and take on too much? Because I always think you're better to give 100% to a few things than try and spread your energy across multiple different things and not give it all in them, because it's natural to like have a bit of burnout.
Yeah, definitely. And I think university does that in the way that usually you kind of do a semester and then you get a break and then you do another, it's kind of broken up, but it's like in that semester it's just like all guns blazing the whole time. So no, totally. I think, like you say, prioritizing things is actually one of the tips that we were talking about in the wellbeing session and stuff, and we were kind of saying how even with like friendships or with the people you surround yourself with and just like what you decide to kind of do day to day, like it's all about prioritizing the right things and prioritizing what is good for your mental well-being.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So in terms of what the speakers said, was there anything that particularly resonated with you? Was there anything that you particularly heard and thought, oh, that really relates to me, that's something that I should take on board? Was there anything that came up that really did apply to you and you've took as a benefit from it?
I think, one of the first speakers, she was kind of talking about how she likes to frame her day as if it was a working day. And this is interesting because one of my friends from home does this as well. So she only does university work like Monday to Friday, and then doesn't do any on the weekend. And I think that's actually a really interesting way to do things, because obviously when you're usually going into uni and you've usually got classes and seminars, your day is far more structured, and it's far more kind of 9 to 5. And then when you go home from uni, you're like, you don't really feel guilty about not doing anything because you've been at uni all day. Whereas now, when you find yourself in the same spot for the entire day, it is really, really easy to feel guilty at night. And I definitely experienced that when you kind of like, you're doing anything in your flat that's not uni work. It's in the back of your head, like, oh no, I should be doing that, I should be doing this. And I thought it was really good when the speaker kind of spoke up and was like, no, like, you can only do so much in a day. And I think that actually you get a lot of benefit out of deciding the times where you work best, working in those times, but then in the evenings or whenever it suits you, do the things that you enjoy and like build on yourself as a person, not just the uni work. I don't know, what do you think?
That's something that I definitely agree with. It's something that I've struggled with myself over the whole lockdown period. It wasn't so bad at the start because I knew that I'd already worked really hard to get to the kind of March time towards the exams, where I kind of knew what I was going to be writing anyway. I didn't feel like I needed to be studying all the time. But I think I really missed university over the summer because we had like 3 months, probably longer than that actually, because it came from like April time.
Yeah, it was a long time. Yeah.
So I had like 5 months off, and that's a long time to just kind of not have that productive aspect to your life. So I really missed that. And then I'm just starting my second year, so that once that started, I wanted to hit the ground running, and obviously doing it from home is a lot harder for me anyway, personally, because as we're recording this, I'm sat in my living room where, Claire, you can see behind me, I've got a television.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you really distinguish between your chill space and your work space? We live in a 1-bedroom flat, so we would like to have a room which was designated for like an office space, but obviously that's not a necessity. It's not something that everyone's going to have. So I do struggle with that. I do struggle with the whole switching off aspect, even when it comes to like at the weekend and I'm sitting there watching the football or something. I'm like, I do have seminar work to finish for Tuesday. Should I maybe just jump on for an hour or so? And I know you're saying about structure. Even when I try and structure, I still struggle to stick with it because it's so easy. I don't know if this is just me, but it's so easy to get sidelined with other things. Like maybe I'll jump on and do something for the podcast, or I'll jump on and maybe send an email for the society or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that's also productive, but it's not uni work productive. And then I feel guilty for that, and I get sidelined throughout the day, and then the days just go so fast. You think they'd go slower because you're sitting in the one place, but they just go so fast, and I'm losing track of time. So it's a lot to deal with, and that's what I want to get across to everyone who's listening and who might be struggling to structure their day or stick to a certain timetable or get all their work done, because it can be easy to sit there and think, I've got more time now than ever. I don't have to commute to university. I don't have to sit through an hour or 2 hour lecture. I can put it on 2 times speed and get done in half the time. It doesn't really work like that, because your mentality is going to be different. Your attitude is going to be different. So if you are struggling with it, don't worry about it. Just get through as best as you can. That's what I said at the event. Just make sure that what you want to aim for is just get through it. It don't need to focus too much on the details. As long as you make it through it, it's an extraordinary circumstance we're living in right now. Everyone's going through it. Don't judge yourself too harshly. At the end of the day, as long as you stay on the path, do whatever you can to stay on the path. As long as you're there, you'll be all right.
Yeah, you're doing good. To be honest, I think like that is such a good thing, and it's kind of, you have to be proud of yourself for just even getting up and doing like one lecture. Like, you're still getting up and doing it, you know. It's not easy, and I think you're totally right to just kind of like be kinder to yourself at the moment than you maybe would have been.
Especially lectures and stuff, because if you're normally sitting there in a lecture theatre, it's a lot harder to kind of Skype on your phone when the lecturer's looking at you, compared to when you're sitting at home and you're watching on your laptop on your dressing gown or something. It's so much easier to just jump on Instagram or jump on Twitter,
just do something else,
Skype for a bit. So in terms of you personally and the things that you said at the event, is there anything that you would pick out that you really want to convey to the people listening who might not have been able to attend the event? Is there any advice that you want to get out there that you think is really important and can be really beneficial for people?
I think there's a few things. I think the first thing is, one of our speakers kind of talked about her experiences with anxiety and like really kind of struggling with that. And I think one of the things she said is to kind of like don't hold back from seeking help, like whether that is from family, whether that is from a medical professional, like, you know, there's no shame in it. Like, everybody experiences feelings like that. And I think if you're struggling, there's just nothing wrong with telling people, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help. And it's the best thing you can do. Like, it's not anything against you, and just to kind of go out and get that help and help yourself. So I think that's definitely one of the things I took from it. I'm trying to think, the other thing I was going to say was just about managing expectations of yourself at this time as well. Because we had one of our younger speakers kind of came on and said that this is her first year at university and that it really isn't anything like she'd imagined, and it was about managing these expectations. And one of the other speakers, who is a bit older and she's kind of experienced loads of different paths and stuff, she was just like, you can't get too caught up in what you think's going to happen, because things always work out the way that they should, and it's all about kind of trusting that process. And the thing is, that's a really easy thing to say, but obviously in real life and practice it's hard to believe that. But I think you do have to kind of just let yourself be a bit more in the moment and like trust that you're doing the right thing right now, and it might not lead you to exactly where you think it's going to go, but at the end of the day you'll end up where you should be. I thought that was one of the really nice messages that came out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In terms of something that I would like to say for anyone listening, it was something that I brought up at the event. And if you're going to end up skiving on Instagram and Twitter or Facebook, if you want to utilize that in the right way, just make sure that you're following the right people. If you're jumping on Instagram and you're scrolling for 5-10 minutes, that can actually be beneficial. It might not be beneficial to your university degree or your studies or whatever, but it can be beneficial for your mental health, your self-empowerment, how you feel about yourself, your confidence. Multiple different aspects of your personality can be positively affected by who you follow on social media. So don't perhaps think about it as a negative thing, like, oh, I just jumped on Instagram for 10 minutes, that's bad. It doesn't have to be. If you're following the right people who maybe share positive insights into their life, maybe they're successful entrepreneurs or people who are basically conveying good messages, you're not just scrolling through like useless influencer stuff, which has its place in society, of course. But if you're trying to study and you're thinking that scrolling on Instagram is a bad thing, maybe just follow more influencer people who are actually good and share positive messages. I know I do that a lot, and my own view of myself has been positively impacted because I'm seeing people who are older and who have been through a lot in life, and they're saying like, don't judge yourself, be kinder to yourself, and basically just resonating messages with myself, which I think is very beneficial and really interesting as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I really enjoy LinkedIn as well as like a kind of network, obviously because LinkedIn is primarily for kind of business related posts, which is great because it feels far more relevant. Like, I don't feel half as guilty spending some time on LinkedIn as opposed to Instagram, but you're totally right. And I think that's because LinkedIn, all of the people I have on LinkedIn, they're sharing really valuable messages, and it's kind of like they'll share tips about working at home or like tips about finding the best path for you and like all these things. And it can, like, sometimes you'll scroll and you won't find anything, and then other times you'll scroll and you'll see a webinar and you're like, oh, that looks great, and then you join it. And the thing is, that kind of opportunity is amazing. So I think if you're not on LinkedIn yet, definitely get a LinkedIn presence, because it means a lot, especially in the field of law. So
it really does. It kind of has two aspects to it, because it's useful for your networking in terms of who you're going to meet, create a contact with. You never know where those can lead. It gets you a kind of business profile out there. So if you're doing any sort of academic activities, or you're joining anything or putting anything on, going to events, stuff like that, put it on your LinkedIn. Go for it. There will be people who like it, and you never know who's going to see it and who might be looking for someone who's doing similar things to you. And then all it leads to is a message, and then boom, you land some work experience or something. It can be quite far-fetched. That might seem like it's a hypothetical situation, but it has happened, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely.
But it's also good for your mental health as well, because you're also seeing people who are doing similar things to you. And I've seen multiple people who are like partners in law firms saying this whole lockdown period is really hard for me. And you're
Yeah.
thinking, wow, these people are like really successful and people who you look up to in your profession, and they're sharing a lot of the same emotions that you have. So it can be really beneficial that way, just to kind of relate to how people are feeling, and it can be very similar to the way you're feeling as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're so right. And it's just that whole thing. I think that's what our event was about. It was just about that message that everyone is going through it and that we're all in the same boat and just kind of supporting each other.
And it's not forever.
No, it's not.
But you never know, but it's not going to be forever. We're going to get to the other end at some point, and just try and get through it as best as you can. So Claire, we're wrapping up now, but I want to give you 1 or 2 minutes. You have the floor. Is there anything that you really just want to convey to people and send a message out there for everyone listening?
Okay, this is pressure. I think my number one message would literally just to be kind to yourself at the moment, and to remember that you're not what you're. So if you're a university student or if you're working in a job, whatever, like, your value isn't the work that you produce. Like, you're more than that, and there's more to life than getting good grades or doing well in this. Like, you know, work on your academic side of things, work on your job, all that, but never forget to kind of look after yourself first. Like, you're the main priority. Do some things that you like build on yourself as a person. So for me, I love dancing, I love hill walking, all these kind of things, and if I didn't do them, I would be really lost. So I think it's important. Everyone has totally different hobbies, and like, could be listening to music, could literally be anything, but never kind of let them disappear because you're focusing on uni work or because you're focusing on your job. Like, always focus on yourself and focus on the things that you enjoy. And yeah, just be kind to yourself. That would be me.
I totally agree, Claire. I think that's a really good message to send out there. Just be kind to yourself, everyone, and make sure you take time to actually relax. I know it's hard in the current climate, but take some time away from your desk and make time to actually do things that you enjoy away from the whole professional academic side of things. So yeah, that wraps us up. So thank you very much, Claire, for coming on. And honestly, I can't thank you enough for putting the event on. It was amazing. I'm sure I speak for all of the attendees. It was very beneficial. Tears were shed for myself and President Youre. It was very emotional, but it was very beneficial. It was something I really looked forward to, and it really did deliver even above my own expectations. So thank you very much for putting it on. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for all of the hard work you do on the social side of things, keeping us ticking over, because it is very important for everyone to try and stay social during these times. It's very beneficial that we've heard from, you know, certain first years who've came on and who are struggling to kind of make friends at university, stuck in halls, which is a terrible situation. The fact that we can put some events on for them to come on, chill out a little bit, have a laugh, it's all thanks to you and everyone else in the committee. So thank you for your hard work.
No, thank you.
And I'm sure we'll hear from you again very soon. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to another episode of our podcast. If you like what you hear, please follow us on your podcast platform of choice to ensure that you never miss an upload. To keep up to date with us, you can follow our Instagram page, which is Star Law Society. Additionally, our Twitter is @_Star Law Society. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me, and I'll speak to you again very soon.